It looks like the pick is in here. I'm not gonna be disappointed either way, David. I'm not gonna be disappointed either way. All right, here it goes. We're reacting live. The Miami's pick is in. They're about to announce it here. We're gonna see how the rest of the room reacts here at Kaseya Center.
All right, I'm waffling a little bit. I don't know if it's Richardson. I don't know.
I'm trying not to look at the comments on YouTube in case people's stream is ahead of ours. I'm standing.
Clifford?
I'm standing. I don't know. I don't know.
What do you think?
What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Do they blow our mind? Do they just go totally what the Heat do every year? Just the guy we did not expect, the guy we didn't necessarily pencil in. Is it something crazy? Do they take a center from China?
Adam Silver's walking up on stage.
Adam Silver's walking. Are they going to trade the pick?
One name to keep an eye on that I'm told they are expected to be a potential super court is Warriors restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga.
So Shams also reporting now Miami's interest in Jonathan Kuminga. Is the 20th pick going to be involved in a Kuminga deal right now? I can't imagine that they would be able to pull all of that off right now, but who knows? So if it is Kuminga that they have interest in, addressing that position now wouldn't make very much sense. The pick is in. Why does it always feel like it takes the longest for Miami's pick to be announced? Every year.
Because nobody has sources, so they can't break. They never break what the pick is beforehand. I don't know. They may have asked him. He said the pick is in. No, but the pick is in.
All right.
I don't know what's.
It's Jakucionis, according to Jake Fisher and Mike Scotto. They are taking Jakucionis here at number 20.
Wow.
They are taking him here at 20.
Wow.
That, I love it. I love it if this is the pick. This is the big swing.
The pick is in. Let's go Heat. Let's go Heat.
The pick is in. Adam Silver walking up to the podium.
With the 20th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat select Kasparas Jakucionis.
Yeah!
It's Jakucionis, folks. It's Jakucionis. It's Jakucionis.
Good luck, Michael B. We're just going to call him.
Is it Justice Winslow? Is it Caron Butler? I don't know. But the guy who is ranked
KJ for now. I'll need the rest of the
11th by ESPN. He was ranked 7th at the Ringer. A consensus lottery pick here. Falls all the way to Miami at 20. Walter Clayton Jr. off the board. Cedric Coward off the board. Plenty of guys who made sense for Miami off the board. They go ahead and say, you know what? You're going to let us take them? Bet. We're going to go ahead and take them. All of you guys that passed on them, we're going to go ahead and take them. Kasparas Jakucionis. A fascinating pick here. Here's what the Ringer says about him. High field orchestrator and playmaker who will add rhythm and flow to whatever offense he joins. Doesn't that feel like something Miami needs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just feels like such an atypical pick, but at the same time, it's exactly what the Heat needed, and they somehow wind up lucking into it. That's just not how Miami has typically operated, and yet, you know what? I kind of love the selection for Miami. He's a good, solid player that fits an obvious area of need and allows them to do a lot of different things. I hope they wind up keeping the pick, too, because it always feels like, oh, now we'll get the notification after the draft selection's been made that maybe they wind up trading him somewhere. But I love the game. I love what he can do for this Heat organization, or this Heat team in particular. His playmaking, the feel, all the different things that he brings to the table. It's exactly what Miami is looking for. And how many of our fans, how many times have we said they need playmaking? They don't have an elite pick and roll ball handler. They don't have anybody who can create opportunities, make offense easy for anybody else on this roster. Jakucionis is that guy. And so
he's 6'6". Got a plus wingspan.
Yeah.
He can play that's the size to play next to somebody like Davion Mitchell, next to somebody like Tyler Herro. He gets Tyler Herro off the ball, which is so important to Tyler Herro's game in Miami's. But to your point, Gavoni on ESPN right now is saying they don't traditionally go this direction. So it's a great call out by you. But this is exactly what they need. I love the fact that this guy's from Lithuania. He's got that European flair to his game. It's unselfish. I did a little bit of work on Jakucionis, not as much of work on some of the guys that we thought were actually going to be there for Miami here at 20 at the back end of the first round. But I did some work on everybody in the first round. I did some work on Jakucionis. The things that stood out to me immediately, his ability to run pick and roll, which he was asked to do over and over again at Illinois. His ability to run pick and roll, elite feel for the game, super creative passer, really adept at making those dump off passes, or those passes that with the one arm to the opposite corner. Miami loves to run those splash actions to get those corner threes, where they have somebody hit that pin down on the baseline and set up a shooter to pop out in the corner. Jakucionis is going to be able to hit that pass on day one. You said this, and I thought it was a really great point last year. Miami might be the worst pick and roll team in the NBA. They just got probably, if not Igor Demin, the best pick and roll ball handler, best pick and roll passer in this draft. I think at 20, you're just looking for somebody who could be additive to your roster. He's additive, right? The way we talked about Davion Mitchell last year, where it just blew our mind. Oh my God, this is what it's like when you have somebody that can guard at the point of attack. Something we didn't have last year. It just shifts all the tectonic plates of the roster, and it just changes things. To have a guy like Jakucionis be able to run pick and roll with a natural feel to the game. Tyler Herro doesn't have to do it anymore.
No.
Tyler Herro is the opposite of a natural playmaker passer.
Yep.
He's a natural scorer, a natural shooter. Jakucionis is opposite of that. He's a natural playmaker, a natural passer, not necessarily a natural scorer. But we said this in our lead up to this draft. Miami doesn't care about the outside shooting component. They believe they can teach you to shoot. They want you to have size, and they want you to have feel, and they want you to bring something to the table. Jakucionis does that, and if he pops, and they can get him to shoot at a relatively high clip within the next couple of years, this could be the steal of the draft.
I love it. I really just think he provides so much of what Miami's needed offensively, because you saw so many possessions that were just these slogs of just trying to create your own shot. And now you have, I mean, when was the last time Miami had a legitimate playmaker on this roster?
Kyle Lowry, his first year. Goran Dragic before that. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. And I think he has a potential, Jakucionis does, to be better than Lowry does, because Lowry had already taken a step back in regards to his playmaking ability. He did not unlock that roster the way many people expected him to. And that's fine. He was still a positive plus player maker. I think ultimately, though, you take a swing on a young player like this, it could really make an impact, and it makes everything so much easier for this team. Now, and I saw this in the comments, if you can get that kind of playmaker and somehow wind up making the move for, say, a guy like Kuminga, who's a natural scorer, does that unlock his game even further?
That's a great point. That is a great point. Another point here from Nick in the comments. Ware and Jakucionis are going to be good together. Yeah. Having Jakucionis with Bam. I mean, Bam, a big part of Bam's struggles offensively is that nobody could throw an entry pass to the guy. Nobody could throw him a lob. And ironically enough, the best lob thrower on the team is Terry Rozier, and he did everything else horribly last year, and you couldn't get him on the court. But he was the best lob thrower to Bam. If Jakucionis could come in and be a legit playmaker for you, look, probably he's not going to start on day one. I would be shocked. But as your backup point guard, and if you can run lineups of Jakucionis and Kel'el Ware as your second unit, and then have Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo anchoring your first unit, that at least theoretically makes some sense there. I love the size part of this. You were big on Josh Giddey last year. You were very impressed by him. There's a lot of Josh Giddey in this guy's game. There's a lot of Nikola Topic last year, who, again, was a lottery pick last year. People are expecting big things from him in his second year now that he's healthy in Oklahoma City. This is the kind of player Miami's, they've never had a player like this. They've had playmaking guards. They've had European players. They've never had a big guard, and you see where the league is going. Tyrese Halliburton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm not saying he's going to be the next version of that, but he at least is in that mold. He's got the physical profile of those guys, and that's a thing Miami's never really had at that spot.
No, I really do like the selection. I think it's a great fit. You know what? I'm going to disagree with you, though. I think he winds up starting. I think he could be the better option as a starter with Davion coming off the bench because I know maybe that's too much of a risk having him and Tyler at the same time out there. I don't know. It all depends on what other moves they make. But I just feel like you need somebody to make the offense move a little bit more easily in that starting lineup. Defense, you know what? You'll have enough defenders there, I think, eventually, if you can bring Davion. Or does it signify that maybe this is the end of Davion's tenure in Miami? There's a lot of possible options there.
I think if it were up to them, Davion would be a backup. He would come off the bench as your defensive guy. I mean, he's 6'6", Jakucionis is. You could say he could play another position. I would rather him just be a point guard. But his stats last year at Illinois, 15 points on 44% shooting, 32% from three-point range.
Not
but
great.
again, that was after, that's including the forearm injury. Before the forearm injury, he was shooting at a 40% clip from three at a high volume, 5.2 three-point attempts per game. You know me. I like, even when you can't shoot at the college level, I like that you take them. Because when you're taking them, that tells me behind the scenes you're working on them. You don't take those shots unless you're confident in that shot, and you're not confident in that shot unless you're putting the work in behind the scenes. So I like that he's done that.
You know what?
The free throw percentage is good at 85%.
I've seen a lot of people commenting already about his turnovers, and they are a little high.
They are.
But you've got to take chances. And remember, we're talking about his teammates in this sense. This is at the college level. These are guys that aren't necessarily – he might be the most skilled player on that Illinois team, and as such, he was making plays for everybody else in that roster. It's not necessarily on him that they weren't able to either catch the ball or finish those plays at a high level. That's what you do. And I trust that Miami has the players on the roster to maximize those playmaking abilities, and he's going to unlock them in a way that we have not seen in some time. So I'm not concerned about the rosters. You got to take chances. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, etc. And I think with his talent, his playmaking, his passing, his court vision, these are necessary factors. And you take the risk. You take the risk that he's going to tighten things up a little bit and become a little bit more consistent, so long as he can help everybody else in this roster. Look, we've talked about this team, this iteration of this group for years has been one that struggles with offense, that can't seem to make their own shots, that dribbles the hell out of the ball for 20-something seconds of the shot clock only to pull up a rush shot at the very end. You finally have somebody who can unlock an offense on this roster. Maybe we're a little too high on him, but that's what the draft is all about. You hope, you pray, you wish, and you know what? Sometimes it pans out. And I am very cautiously optimistic that this guy is going to help Miami in a big way, and I think Heat fans are going to love his playmaking ability.
There's a lot to like about the pick. I want to go back to the point about the assist to turnover ratio. 4.7 assists to 3.7 turnovers last year at Illinois. He took too many chances. He was a little sloppy with the basketball. To your point, Illinois, he kind of had to do it. He's not a perfect player. He fell to 20. But I would rather, he has creativity and he has vision and he's able to process things. When you talk about a pick and roll ball handler, you're not just talking about a guy who runs pick and roll, guy goes under, I shoot it, guy goes over, I attack the basket and then I throw the pass. There's so much more to pick and roll ball handling. Stacking plays, stacking actions, being ahead of the defense. He's showed the ability to do that. He's a good reader of the floor, feel for the game stuff. That's the stuff that's very, very hard to teach. It's the stuff, frankly, that Miami's been trying to teach Tyler Herro, and it just hasn't gotten to that level. Jakucionis is a natural playmaking forward who naturally thinks of the game in that way. That's huge. And to go back to the assist-to-turnover ratio, does he get himself into trouble a little bit too much with a little bit too much of a flashy pass? Does he try to get a little too creative, fit a ball in a window that's not there? Yes. But I would rather you have that creative flair and then dial it back than try to teach you to read the game at that level and try to get and try to fit you into that role that you're otherwise don't have that skill, don't have that feel. I'd rather you have that ability and just try to dial it back a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. It's exactly right. If you haven't shown that ability, very rarely do you get a player like Bam Adebayo who wasn't given the opportunity to unlock all of his talents, the way he can operate, and Miami gave him that chance eventually. But that's more, I think, of a product of John Calipari and how he kind of uses players very specifically in a very specific way, regardless of what their broader talents might be. I think there's a lot to like about a player like this. You know, if he can bring that kind of swag, and I think that's going to be it. I think it's an opportunity for our offense to look much more fluid than it has in years past. And everybody points to, I can't recall exactly what that game was, where I think Miami was out a couple of players and their offense just seemed to flow, and there was a lot of ball movement, et cetera. And it's like, well, why doesn't Miami play like that more often? Well, guess what? A player like Jakucionis helps in that regard, and I think he really does make things so much easier for this team, especially for a guy like Bam Adebayo. I really love the idea of pairing him and Ware together for a long time. You want to be able to have that chemistry, and I really, really do enjoy that. A lot of different things here. So if you want to pivot, I know we're all excited about the pick, or at least most of us seem to be. Do you think now that they've addressed this very glaring need on the roster that there's an obvious target area that they want to look to in terms of either a trade or in free agency or something else like that?
Well, I think you nailed it before. I think somebody now like Kuminga does make sense. Somebody that could set Kuminga up and spoon-feed him the shots that he wants. Heck, I mean, even if you want to make the DeRozan deal, that makes a little bit more sense now. I mean, if you can go, look, they still need a scorer. They still need a scoring option. That's out there. But in terms of where the Heat are thinking, they did not trade this pick in a deal, in a package, to go get 37-year-old Kevin Durant. And instead they used it on a 19-year-old who they like. You wanted the Heat to pick a direction. This is it. It's not a rebuild, but it's, hey, we're not going for 30-plus-year-olds. We're going a little bit younger. And we're going to maintain our cap space, and we're going to look at 2026 to maybe make our big move then. So, yeah, I think you address the things on the wing. I think you need to shake up the roster still and jettison some players who aren't fits in a post-Jimmy Butler era. I think you still have to, fix the roster. I think you got to figure it out. I think you got to figure out places for, if you're out on Andrew Wiggins, you got to find a place for him. If you're out on Terry Rozier, you got to find a place for him. Or just let him be an expiring salary that you use at the trade deadline, or just let him come off the books next summer. That's definitely a possibility. You have to answer your question about Duncan Robinson. Do we let him go and save the money before whatever it is, July 8th or whatever that deadline is, or do we think that he's a piece for us this year, or do we like him as an expiring contract, whatever it is? They've got a lot of decisions to make here, but Jakucionis isn't the answer, but he's part of whatever this next version of the Heat looks like, probably.
And I like that. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there in terms of it sheds some light on the idea that, you know what, we recognize what our problems are and we're addressing them the best way possible. And I know that's going to be frustrating for Heat fans. I really do. I understand the idea. It's like they were out on KD to a large degree. They didn't wind up making a trade for a superstar. Well, guess what? Those kind of transactions aren't easy to make. You're not going to find them as easily, readily as you would like as a fan. And so you have to understand, and maybe this isn't what you want to hear, but you have to understand patience at this point. But if you're looking to tweak the roster or retool it, just make the kind of changes that make things easier for this group to function at a higher level, I think a player like this makes a lot of sense. And so you have to trust that the front office has other moves available that can surround the core pieces on this roster with the kind of players that will make things easier, whether it's a high-level playmaker like Jakucionis or somebody who's an elite defender or a top scorer like a guy like Kuminga or somebody else, or DeRozan. Because let's be honest, that might be That might be the option. That might be how it plays out for this group. Look, and I don't think either of us are opposed to the DeRozan option, because we said it before. It's like you've got to, if you can keep Tyler and Bam, and that's clearly what you want to build around, and you can get a guy like DeRozan, who many people forget in Chicago was having a bit of a renaissance in his career and was talked about as one of the top 5, top 10-ish players in the league because he was Mr. Clutch and he had all these big-time shots and he really salvaged their season to a huge degree. Hurt Miami on a number of occasions too. Okay, sorry, you're saying he's washed in the comments here. I don't see how. He was putting up 20-plus points per game last year. Like,
if he's washed, he'd still be Miami's best scorer.
Yeah.
Which says maybe more about Miami's roster than anything else. Look, DeRozan's not the answer, but he might be a short-term solution.
Correct.
Right? And especially if you're out on Wiggins and you're trying to create cap space for next summer, it's got to be an option, especially if you're able to get something back in that DeRozan, a deal that other than just DeRozan, if there's some sort of other asset coming back potentially here. So we have so much to get to in regards to the draft. This was look, the one thing that you and I definitely called, we were going to be surprised. Kasparas Jakucionis is the pick here. We've gone on this live stream for more than 3 hours now in a very eventful night on the draft, and yeah. So I think we end it here. I think we end our live stream here, and then we come back with our regular episode, kind of breaking this down the way that we usually do it. But look, there's a lot to get to. We got more on the pick. All right, we got. I want to tell you more about Lithuanian basketball players, which I'm very excited about. How does this guy fit in? What does this mean for the rest of the roster? Who on the roster currently is impacted most by the Jakucionis pick? And does this mean that a Kuminga move is coming? Does this mean that Miami is going younger instead of older? And what does that mean for Miami going forward? We're going to talk about that. Thanks to everybody who tuned in on the live stream. This is not the end of our shows. We're going to end the live stream here. We're going to come back on a separate feed and record a standard half-hour episode here on Locked On Heat to answer all the questions you have. We're basically just taking a break. We're going to gather our thoughts. We're going to come back with another video later on, another podcast later on. But thanks to everybody who hung out, spent some time with us during the NBA draft 3-hour live feed. You guys were awesome the entire time. The comments were great. Thanks so much for tuning in. Surprising night, man. Surprising night. We got more to talk about. We'll do it next year on Locked On Heat.